Yep.
We're done.
Well, I closed and restarted Zoom.
Are you ready to start, Eric?
Yeah, if we got everybody on there now.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Yep, let's go.
I don't know if other people were having the phenomenon I was having.
Alan, Commissioner Lunt's having the same issue.
Okay, so we're doing that. I had to close and reopen Zoom. I mean, I sat there and just waited, and it appeared like I was just to be let in.
Lynn, it looks like Alan's listed as a participant. I mean,
yeah, she just let me.
I've got it.
You're there. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Welcome, everybody, to tonight's Planning Commission meeting for North Ogden City. I'm Chairman Thomas. I'll be conducting. This meeting is being held virtually through Zoom, December 2nd, 2020. We'll begin with an invocation by Chairman Thomas, followed which recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Barker. And we'll go to that point. Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for this opportunity we have to gather as citizens of North Ogden. And we're thankful for the many blessings that we enjoy and this beautiful place we have to live. We ask that thou would bless us this night. We'll be able to have clear thoughts and impressions that we'll be able to discuss the things on the agenda to best plan and organize things for the city and for the future residents of North Ogden. We'll be able to express our thoughts and feelings to each other and be considerate of each other's thoughts and feelings as well. And we ask for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Repeat the Pledge of Allegiance if you can after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll make a note that we're all in attendance tonight. Our consideration for the November 18th Planning Commission meeting minutes. Any corrections or, Commissioner Mason got kicked out. Saying he's no longer a panelist.
Okay, I've got it promoted.
Did we get that? Commissioner Mason, are you back with us?
Yeah, if you want to fire me, just tell me.
We keep trying.
Yeah. All right, our consideration for our November 18th minutes. Any corrections or for those minutes?
Yeah, I will make a motion that we approve the minutes as they're listed.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We will now go on to our opening meeting statement. Before each agenda item begins, city staff will give a report. After the staff report, the item will be open for others to speak. The applicant will speak first and allow up to 10 minutes. Following the applicant, any other interested person will be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes. The applicant has the final rebuttal time of up to 5 minutes. Any materials that are displayed or referenced, e.g. pictures or written materials as part of the record, and must be forwarded to the Planning Commission. Speakers are required to have registered their full name on Zoom and will state their name and address before beginning their remarks. If you agree with a previous speaker, then state your agreement to avoid repetitious remarks. Speakers shall address all comments to the Planning Commission. Please silence or mute your microphones until ready to speak. Now, I'm going to go back up to the top here. Do we have, I guess we don't really have any ex parte. We're not voting on anything else tonight. Do we have any, I didn't notice if we have any public, do we have any public comments tonight on
We have
anything
a
that's not on
couple
the agenda?
people attending, but I don't see any hands raised. We'll give them just a sec. Nope, no hands raised.
Okay. Well, tonight we don't have any administrative items. We just have, so we'll go on with our legislative items. Item number 6, the Zone Text Amendment 2018-3. Continue our discussion and give direction regarding flag lots in the Sensitive Lands Amendment to the City Code. Rob?
Thank you, Chair and members of the commission. After our last discussion, I worked on putting together a draft set of standards for flag lots to be only allowed in the sensitive area overlay. So I have given you that ordinance along with a number of standards. So I thought I would just briefly go through each one of the standards, and then as commissioners have questions about them, then we could either discuss them or I can take notes, or etc. So the first provision basically says that it's a planning commission action that would approve a flag lot, and the only way that a flag lot would be allowed would be that there would be certain topographic conditions. There might be some sensitive land concerns or other requirements of this chapter where streets cannot or should not be extended to access substantial buildable areas that would otherwise comply with the minimum lot standards of the underlying zone, subject to compliance with the following conditions. So the first one is that only one single family dwelling would be able to be constructed as a main use on a flag lot. Accessory buildings are subject to the standards for the underlying zone and subsection X, or X. Let me try that again, H. B, we discussed this, there was some discussion about what should be the minimum lot size or the lot area for the flag lot. Staff has indicated you wanted something larger than the underlying zone. I put in 1 acre. You can decide if that's if you want to go forward, you can take a look at that particular provision. Item C says that no more than 2 flag lots may be contiguous to each other and abut upon the same public street. So in other words, there would only be, you can't have a whole set of flag lots that come off of these private lanes as indicated. It would be limited to only a maximum of 2. Let's see, also 2 adjoining flag lots may share a common private lane. D, the private lane accessing a flag lot shall be held in either fee title as a part of the flag lot, or the private lane may be evidenced by a recorded express easement that would be approved by the city engineer, the city manager, city attorney. All of John's exciting titles. So in other words, there would be some option there depending on the circumstance of the lot that it would allow either for an easement or it actually could be a recorded portion of the lot. Item E, you can't use the flag portion of the lot as part of the overall area. So lots that have a lane, any lots that have a lane crossing or adjoining them to access a flag lot must be increased in area and width equal to the lane area and width. Oh, I'm sorry, that's for the lot that fronts onto the street. What we're suggesting here is that those particular lots, when they have a lane that crosses them, they shouldn't be penalized for the fact that there is either an easement or land that goes across, and therefore the width of the lot needs to be increased, and also the size needs to be as established in that underlying zone. F, this one's quite long, but basically what it's saying is that the maximum length of the access lane is 150 feet from the public street. And then there's a little different standard for if you have a shorter flag. So if it's less than 100 lineal feet in length, then it would be required to have 20 feet, 12 feet of pavement, and then 4 feet of landscape buffer on either side. If it's 101 feet onto 150 feet, then that private lane would be 28 feet, 20 feet wide with 4 feet buffers. G, the private lane may be configured to be serpentine design. We kind of talked about that last time. So it isn't just a straight shot up the hill. It would need to be consistent with the contours, minimize the cuts and fills and vegetation as per 1124. That's our grading and drainage ordinance. And the lane shall not exceed a 10% grade. That's consistent with the other standard for driveways that we have in the sensitive area overlay. Then H, the main body of the flag lot, exclusive of the private lane, shall meet with the required lot area, lot width, front, back, and side yard requirements for the zone which it is located. And then, or as described in exhibit and subsection H, whichever is greater. All other applicable, or I should say that should be subsection I. Whichever is greater in all other applicable provisions, the area of the private lane accessing the lot may not be included to compute the required minimum area of the main body of the flag lot. So in both instances, the lot where it's crossing and the flag lot itself, the flag is not included in the area calculation. Item sub I, we're recommending that there be some substantial setbacks, 30 feet on front, sides, and also the rear. We're recommending a maximum height of 25 feet. The private lane accessing the flag also is subject to approval by the Northview Fire Marshal. So we want to make sure that they have the ability to access the property and protect it in the event of a fire. And last but not least, the address of the flag lot dwelling shall be clearly visible from or posted at the abutting public street. So that's the extent of this draft. I'd be happy to discuss any aspect of it with the commissioners. If you feel comfortable with this, we'll insert it within the sensitive area overlay, and that would become a part of that overall amendment.
Hey, Rob?
Yes, sir.
On F, if that could be made into a chart, it may be easier to read and understand for people just looking at it than trying to read through that whole paragraph. Is that possible?
Yes. Don't you like my diagram? Oh, you already told me that you don't.
Well,
But yeah, we do have the ability to, with our consultants that are working with us, they will put together a nice diagram that shows those provisions, and we can reference that.
so I
One thing, go ahead, Commissioner Mason.
have concerns with F. You know, I think there's some conflicting information there. Are we going to open this to public input first, Mr. Chairman, or are we discussing it first?
Well, we can just, I guess we can open it up. I was thinking what we had, did we have per public? We do have. Yeah, we can, let's go ahead and open for public comment on this item as we discuss it, and then we can discuss it amongst ourselves. Unless we feel like, do you feel like the discussion that we have would be more informative with the public?
Oh, I
Well,
don't know.
let's go through some of this, I guess, ourselves, because I agree with you, Commissioner Mason, that some conflicting information,
Yeah.
in my opinion, on F. You know, when we're saying, hey, we want it to be a 1 acre lot, but but the lot in front of it, the maximum that lot could be would be only 150 feet deep.
Possibly 120 feet, considering that if the lane has to be a maximum of 150 and there's a 30-foot setback. Now you've only got 120 feet.
Well, the setback from the house. So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
the
so the
setback
driveway,
from the rear property line of the lot that's in front of it.
right?
So
So the intent was that 150 feet is the length of the flag itself, not the lot.
yeah. Well, yes, but what I'm saying is, in an instance, like think of if we're on a subdivision that has half acre or 1 acre lots, and this lot behind there is going to be a 1 acre as well. To get back to that, you might need to go 250 feet, you know, or around a pond or something like that needs to be quite lengthy. I don't know that, is there a reason why we need to say that there's a maximum length for a drive? Because to me, it almost promotes that the lot fronting the street limits its size.
That's exactly my concern.
So if you had a 1 acre lot that was a flag lot behind a 1 acre lot that's on the street, you couldn't get that flag lot back there. It's too, I mean, you'd have to design the lot in a way to make it work. But if we're really trying to accommodate sensitive lands, the idea is we may have to be far reaching to get back to that buildable area. Which kind of goes along a little bit the same. I know that with the grade, if the intent for this, at least in my opinion, the intent of this, those two kind of go together, is if we're trying to get through some sensitive lands to a buildable area, part of that might be the ground is a little bit steep. It needs to get back further. And so are we concerned about having it a grade? The grade issue for me anyway, at least to address, is I would like it to see, I believe our streets are limited to a 12% grade. And so if we're going to limit slopes anywhere, we just need to be consistent throughout the whole city code. I don't see, you know, if we say, well, it's 10% here for a driveway, but the street out front could be at a 12% slope.
Yeah. Eric, I have put some comments in the chat box that deal with some of the
Okay.
grades, if you want to look at those.
Lauren, why don't you read those to us?
It says, because of topography issues, the slope of the flag access should actually be allowed to exceed the 10%. Most likely the reason for the flag is that the slopes of the ground exceed 20%. I would recommend that we minimize the cuts and fills, that the drive access slope be allowed to possibly exceed 15%, maybe up to 20%, just because of those reasons. So.
Okay, yeah, that kind of goes along with what I was thinking as well.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
if the idea is to get past some sensitive issues, we might need some length to get back there, and we might need some possible slope to get through an area as well. Yeah, you know, what comes back to my mind, I keep thinking of, you know, in the HP3 zone where you might have a 2 acre lot, you might have two lots that front a street, and then there's a third lot that's behind them. And that driveway might need to be 300 feet long to get back to it because it's going past 2 acre lot.
And
rather
there
than
may be-
build a whole road to get up there for one single lot and build a cul-de-sac on it.
And there may be sections of that access roadway that need to be a lot steeper than the rest.
So if we feel like we need to limit slope, then I would agree with what the city engineer had put in there, saying, well, we might need to be as much as 20%, allow up to that, or do we even want to get in and regulate it? I mean, we don't regulate how steep people's driveways are. So is this something that we feel like we need to do other than, you know, creating a steep issue into somebody's yard?
Yeah, I think I've got neighbors across the street from me that got a 20% grade going down under their house.
Yes, you do, Don.
I mean,
So,
if they don't shovel the driveway, they slide right into their garage in the winter because driveways are also on the north side of the house. And I know they're probably that steep.
And I have a
I-
neighbor that has a driveway that's probably 30%. They actually have to have steps up the side of it if you want to walk up it easily.
Oh my, I can't imagine that in the winter. I don't know why anybody would do that, but I understand the topographic reasons too.
I can understand not controlling the grade if this road is going to be private and they have to keep it clean and taken care of on their own.
Oh, absolutely.
City's responsibility.
Yeah.
And the reasoning behind the 10% is, as you have indicated, there are examples around the city where we have allowed, in my opinion, excessively steep driveways. They're not safe. My suggestion is that we probably should consult with the fire marshal to see what his standard, what he recommends as a standard, because you start talking about 20%, there's no way that you're going to get a fire truck up that kind of a grade.
yeah,
Is that kind of covered in section J where it has to be approved by the fire marshal?
yeah, maybe that's encompassed as part of that, as far as the steepness and the length is kind of mandated, is kind of dictated by the fire marshal, and we just stay out of it if those are the reasons.
That'd be good.
I
Just
think
list
it's-
it that way.
I think it's important to have at least some baseline standards and in our ordinance.
Well, I just mean, if we have the width, your width, I'm okay with. The length and steepness could be, as approved by the fire marshal, and maybe we have in there the saying there can be portions that portions that go up to 20%, but the overall grade average, or something like that. So if you envision it's not just a straight shot driveway, but maybe it is a meandering part and there's a 40-foot section of it that is kind of steep to get through some topography, but then smooths back out.
We could have the same situation. Somebody's trying to build a house up on top of a little ridge, and they do a cut and fill where they can't get a fire truck up there, even though the grade is, at 10 or 15%, because they've got such a tight turn going up to, switchbacks on a road to get up to the top of a ridge, that the fire marshal wouldn't approve that as well.
Yeah, I think once the length gets to a certain point where they actually have to drive a fire truck down the driveway, then there's a different set of standards that have to be applied.
So, yeah.
So, and then my only other thing in this, at least for my part of it, then you guys, we can discuss, was also the height. I feel like we don't need to limit the height of a building other than our normal code of 35 feet. Again, just to keep things uniform. If I would encourage even a bigger front setback than 30 feet, just to make sure the houses are as far apart from each other as we can. But the height wise, again, going back to, if you look at the standard in the building code, a house can be 25 feet away from the back property line, and the neighbor behind them can be 25 feet away. So in theory, you could have two houses 50 feet away from each other, and they both can be 35 feet tall. So I feel like let's just leave it as a 35-foot tall height that's consistent across our standards in the city. But from a front setback, I wouldn't mind seeing it be, if it has to be on a 1 acre lot, I wouldn't mind seeing it say it has to be even 40 or 50 feet back from the front. That way, the closest the house could be to the house in front of it would be at 50 feet would be 75 feet. Now, most people aren't building right to that 25-foot setback of their rear, but that's the extreme situation. And then you're saying, well, we're making sure there's at least 75 feet between buildings. If it was to that extent. So those are my opinions on what we have written. What commissioners, what other thoughts, what are your guys' thoughts?
My other thought when I read through this, and for the most part, I like it. I like the direction it's going, but I bet you could count on both hands the number of lots that would even be considered for this, the way it's written.
Which
Well,
to me
that's-
is a plus. My concern with this is we open the door for some crappy development. And I think the more constraining it is, the better. So, not that I disagree with you, Commissioner White, but I don't
No,
see.
I'm not saying that's a problem. It's just that it really is restrictive, and there aren't going to be many places where it would even apply. So it weeds out lots and lots of stuff from even applying. No, I think it's good. I don't want to see, but there are going to be a few, but I don't think there's going to be very many that meet all of the criteria listed here. And I don't think that's bad.
Mr. Scott, Mr. Scott, what is the thinking behind the maximum height of the structure of 25 feet? Just
Well,
blocking views, or?
yeah, when you've got steep slopes and what have you, it's people peering down on their neighbors and that. In fact, staff recommends not just 25 feet for flag lots. We recommended 25 feet be in the sensitive overlay overall because of that very reason. All you have to do is drive up on that hillside and you see, it's not hard to find examples where it's, in my opinion, not the most advantageous thing to have somebody peering down on your privacy.
But
I like that. I just wasn't sure, you
Yeah,
know.
I agree. You know, we have that going on where they're putting the new houses over the Fred Brown's lot. The people along the west side look right down to the people who lived there for a long time, backyards now. And, you know, they're 35 feet and they're looking down about the house even being built yet. So I
Well, part
understand.
too that you're going to run into is, I mean, even where I live, and I'm not up on the hill, my main floor, if I walk back from my main floor onto my deck, there's 15 to 20 feet drop to my backyard neighbor's main floor.
Mhm.
And so even if my house was limited to, 25 feet, which I'm probably under 25 feet, I'm still looking down into my neighbor's backyard. But
Yeah, really, a 25-foot limit basically saying no two-story homes are allowed.
Right, correct.
So, and that's where I don't want to get in as a city governing that. I don't think having a two-story house or a single-story house affects whether a piece of land is a sensitive land. So,
my take,
if
I cut you off, go ahead.
go ahead, no.
Well, my take on this is what we're trying to do is prevent crap, right? I mean, we don't care about shapes of lots and stuff as long as it just doesn't look crappy. I mean, for lack of a better term. I have a Weaver High education, so my vocabulary isn't that great. But so where I'm going with this is, like, if we're saying flag lots are okay, and we're trying to make them high-end flag lots, what kind of a high-end home really comes in that's not a two-story home, right? So in my opinion, I think we do get rid of the 25 foot, and we try to angle this legislation to say, okay, if you're going to do a flag lot, it's going to have to be high-end kind of a thing. I mean, we can't obviously regulate high-end, but we shouldn't put roadblocks in the way to making that become high-end. I mean, I see these things working in the big lots, the spacious places that have really unique entryways. And I just think, who would put a one-story? I mean, these are going to be expensive developments, and I think that it caters to the high-end market, which is a two-story home.
You know, I guess what I'm picturing, and I have all along when we talk about these sensitive lands, is that they're built on slopes, as they build up the hillside. And I would imagine that, the architecture itself, it's not going to be in most cases, a flat one-story house. It's probably, maybe higher in the front than the back because of the hillside build or something. So I like the idea of not too high so they can't look into their neighbor's yard. But on the other hand, I hate to limit it so much that it maybe limits the creativeness of the architecture that would probably be required in some of these sensitive land lots.
Yeah, and I think the way around some of that, instead of saying let's limit height so they're not looking at neighbors, is let's make the house be farther away. Let's make them have some distance between them, and that's where I go back to the, maybe a bigger front setback and allowing a longer driveway so they're around bigger lots. And then I like that it is a 1 acre minimum. If that's what it has to be, you're creating an environment where the house shouldn't be that close to a neighbor. And so there again, the height, then that diminishes the concern about, is the height an issue? If you look at the bare minimums of how we have it here and say, well, I'm going to have a 100-foot long driveway, I'm going to build my house 30 feet behind that, it feels like we're creating an opportunity for a flag lot right in a regular R1 zone. And that's kind of what we want to avoid and you start to do that with a 1 acre lot, and then, allowing them to push it further back, requiring a larger front setback. So you're requiring that distance as a separator to all of that. It's gone quiet. Everybody's said their piece, huh?
No, I agree. It's that may be one way to kind of solve the issue, but I'm trying to wrap my head around the visual of these lots and homes. Like Commissioner Wade said, this may only be a fairly small number of lots that would even fit into this flag lot category. But I might be surprised as people start building up the mountain.
Well,
and partly, I think, Rob, did you have a map? We talked one time about a map or something highlighting the areas we thought in the city would be deemed as a sensitive overlay to kind of give us a visual. I mean, we keep talking about the hillside, like up by the cove and some of that, but I also think that there may be some places like around Barker Fish Farm, or different areas in the city where it may not be as steep, but we deem it as sensitive lands that we want to kind of protect, and slope may not be an issue there, but we want to kind of promote separation of residences and that.
So I haven't put together a map yet, but that could be our next discussion.
Okay.
Well, as far as that goes, I'm in support with Commissioner Thomas with keeping the heights the same as the other heights, and increasing the setback for what it's worth.
Okay.
I concur.
What number do you like? 40 feet, 50 feet?
I like the 40 feet setback.
I like 50. I mean, if it's on a 1 acre lot, again, in my mind, I'm visualizing worst case scenario of somebody's right to their 25-foot setback. Well, how close is that house going to be? And in my head, if I feel like you got 75 feet is the worst case scenario that we could create, that's some pretty good distance between homes, more so than we have in a lot of zones.
Yeah, if you go just do the minimums, if the front home only has a 20-foot setback and you do 40, then it's only 60 feet. Do 50, then you get to at least 70 feet, which I think is probably a wise consideration.
Yeah, I would say that. And then I think far as driveway length, if it exceeds, if we want a standard in there, maybe anything over 100 feet or 150 feet, the slope and length, has to be approved by the fire marshal. And we kind of let that be the governing body of that part of it.
So what I've got in the basic draft is we have a limitation, and I can't remember the exact slope limitation for roadways up in those areas as well. And what it says is that you can cross, and I've forgotten the distance, with the approval of the city engineer. So I kind of get where you're coming from, and I think I can come up with something between Lauren and Ryan Barker that will hopefully accommodate this. So.
Okay. Sorry, I just realized I wasn't on mute. I was trying to plug my phone in if I was loud. Sorry.
Okay.
Now,
Any other?
for what it's worth, while we're talking about setbacks, I had to look, I couldn't remember. But a lot 200 feet by 200 feet is 9/10 of an acre.
Yeah.
So I mean, just kind of to help visualize size, it helped me kind of picture what that meant.
Well, and bringing that into a development standard, typically when you would develop, you're in a sense, you're wanting to limit your frontage on the road because you're spending more money to build a road per lot if it's 200 feet wide. So typically you might see a 1 acre lot that's 150 feet wide and 300 feet deep.
Yep.
Just so you're meeting more frontage and things. And so that in that large development kind of scenario, you'd really need a long flag. But even in a, RE20 zone, you might have still a, 150 by 200 foot deep lot, and you're going to put something behind it.
Yeah, our lot's a half an acre, and we got 100-foot front and 220 feet deep.
Yeah, that typically is from a development
Right.
standards. That tends to be more likely the case just because of what frontage you're getting. So
Correct.
that comes into play on your lengths.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this is really only going to apply in unique situations. And my hope is it's things that where you may have a cul-de-sac with some large lots in it, and there's a 2 acre parcel up above that gets accessed by this long flag that creates a unique way rather than extending the cul-de-sac another 200 feet to accommodate one lot.
Commissioner Thomas, do you think 50-foot setback is enough?
Yeah, I do, in the sense that because that goes from the property line, not the stem of the flag, but the property line of the home in front of it. And, to be honest with you, I see developing on a hillside, you're less often you're developing in grid, especially if it's on slopes. If this is in a hillside scenario, you may not have square lots. And so this really may come into apply where, a lot just can't have that 80 feet or 100 feet frontage that it needs, but the lots behind the house may not sit behind it. Think of it in a vision of maybe you've got triangle shaped lots and the one lot has to qualify as a flag because it doesn't have the frontage. But even when the house sits back there, it still may not be behind another home sometimes. And so it's not always what steered us away from flag lots of the redevelopment of the downtown North Ogden, where they were taking those 1 acre lots and trying to put a house behind the front house. I don't really see that kind of scenario playing out because this should come into play as through development. So I don't see it as in the grid format quite as much. But if it is, that's where the setback is really going to apply. And I think the 50 feet is sufficient because it gives, like Rob said, it's going to be 70 feet away from a home. But ideally, it's that home on the lot in front is probably not going right to its max anyway, to the rear. But I'm sure there's going to be a case in a few years when we say, why in the world did we do that? Look what we created. Or somebody's going to say that. What were they thinking? But for now, we do our best effort to think things through and giving some leeway to make some neat areas be developable, but also restrictions that it's done in a good way, I guess is the best way to my objective of doing it. Well, do we have any other discussion? Let's go ahead and open up to public comment on this item. Lynn, if anybody would like to comment, please raise your hand or send a message in the chat. We'll open that up and we can maybe just talk a little bit more about any comments we receive.
I don't see any hands or chats.
All right. Well, Rob, do you feel like you have enough information maybe to then go forward? I feel like you could probably make an ordinance, but when you do, bring us a map that we can kind of, with some highlighted sensitive lands areas that we anticipate, so we can kind of have an idea where this would apply to anyway.
Yeah, that's something we need to do, and I'll start working on that.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead to item 7, our discussion regarding streetscapes, presented by Kai. Kai, the floor is yours.
Oh, well, it's going to be very brief tonight, Commissioner Thomas. Rob and I were having a discussion, looking at the presentation. The next item, or the next streetscape we're going to be working on, is Monroe Boulevard, and there's a number of issues with that we're going to be discussing. And I just wanted to preface that and let you know that you'll see a formal staff report prior to next meeting. And to look at the transportation map, the neighborhood map, future land use map, and the trails master plan in the general plan, as well as if you could look at the transportation chapter. Yeah, you'll be well enough informed we can have a good discussion next week.
Okay.
Next week. I'm not coming next week.
Oh, right. The next meeting, excuse me.
Yeah, in the staff report, Kai, will you make sure you mention that to the information you'd like us to look at prior to the meeting? Those things you just mentioned.
I'll send that out in an email.
That would be helpful. One of those emails that Lynn sends out reminding us that it's posted, that.
Yeah.
Something like that. That'd be great.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks. I know. Was that your concern? Because we're going to talk about Monroe, so everybody's got to take some deep breaths and prep for it.
Right. Yeah. There's some interesting articles in the Standard that I've been thumbing through that kind of humorous. But yeah, that's all we decided to go with this today. So that's all I have for you.
Is there future development on Monroe being proposed?
Yes, there's a section that's going in right now.
The Johnson Webb property? Is that?
Yeah, the Johnson Webb property. That we won't be doing any streetscape for. But that's another, induced demand is talked about in the general plan, and we'll be talking about that heavily. So we've had a lull in administrative items, so this is finally coming back around.
Okay, perfect. Well, do we have any remarks from planning commissioners?
No, sometimes around the holidays, we end up having a light schedule and canceling. Do we have a meeting? When's our next meeting? It's on the, let's see.
The 16th.
That's probably.
So.
I guess I have no specific reason to cancel that. If there's agenda items.
Yeah, I wondered if we were, for some reason, oftentimes we land one of the meetings around New Year's or Christmas, but it looks like this year it's the 16th and then not till the 6th of January. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, if we don't have any agenda items for 2 weeks, it sounds like we're going to talk about Monroe in 2 weeks. So that's, yeah, I guess.
And we do have some agenda items that they kind of got bumped from this agenda, so they'll surely be ready on the 16th.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm not looking to just make people wait. So.
Yeah, we got to get the last few in there. We're losing a couple of commissioners, or at least Don. We need him to vote on something before he leaves.
Oh yeah.
All right. Anything else from you, Rob?
Just talking about the 16th, maybe Eric, you can chime in about our discussion today. Eric and Mayor Berube and staff and our consultants for our land use code met. And one of the first item on our agenda is going to be a joint meeting with the city council to discuss the land use code and some of the it's a report on the direction that we're taking, as well as we've identified some policy issues for the consideration of the commission and the city council. So it's really an important meeting as it relates to that project.
Is that joint meeting the 16th?
It is. It'll be the first item on
Okay.
our planning commission meeting. You think that I don't listen to you all the time, Mr. Chairman, but I sometimes try to lobby to make sure that you guys don't have to have double meetings.
There you go.
What is the plan for physical meetings to resume? Or is there? I mean,
Once you get a shot in your butt of the vaccine, then we'll let you come back to the meeting.
Are we still just following the? Well, at one point it was we were kind of saying, well, when the the state moves to yellow or whatever, then we were going to follow that. I know things change a lot, and I'm just wondering what the current philosophy is.
Mr. Call can answer that question.
I would not expect to see anything in-person meetings. Probably, I mean, I'd be shocked if we saw anything before February, to be honest, and probably even beyond that. I think it's the way Utah's trending right now. There's just not a likelihood that we'll be encouraging that.
Wish my bishop had the same philosophy.
And no, as a planning commissioner of North Ogden, you don't get on the critical list, so you don't get the vaccine early. Sorry.
I don't want them. Give it to
We're gonna wait
nursing
We're gonna
home.
wait to see what happens to all the other people that take it first. All right. John, anything else from you?
Yeah, it ties back to what was mentioned earlier about there are some applications or a request for applications for planning commissioners. Please, let people who you maybe have been approached by, or people you just know from other reasons, know about the position. And we're always looking for applicants and differing opinions. So anyways, we appreciate this group, and we understand why it is a big commitment and why people move on, and we just want to continue to get good commissioners. So
Okay. Well, thank you. If there's nothing else, motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody want to stay here? All right.
I'm already here.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, you guys.
Bye.
See you next week or 2 weeks.
See you in a couple weeks. Bye.
Bye.